Welcome, Construction Nation, to episode number 7 of the Construction Dream Team podcast, where I interview industry leaders and experts so you can learn how to build your construction dream team based on OPE, other people's experiences. The shortest way to success is to learn from others who have been there and done that. If you want to receive Construction Dream Team on your phone automatically each week, please head on over to iTunes or Stitcher and subscribe. Or you can go to constructiondreamteam.com and push the button for iTunes or Stitcher. We'd love to also get a 5-star rating. This will help us to be more visible and so more Construction Nation can find us. Our guest today is someone I truly admire. He served as the director at San Francisco International Airport from 1995 until 2016 when he retired. His leadership left a legacy that lives on today. Under his leadership, SFO underwent massive changes and unprecedented growth, including overseeing a $3.5 billion capital plan that included the iconic International Terminal and BART extension. I recall one of our aviation planners saying to me after a meeting that we just had with John that it was truly rare to find a visionary in the public sector. And this pretty much sums up John. He was and is a visionary. He led his organization to become exceptional. He's always pushing for exceptional. On a personal note, it has been my pleasure to work with John Martin during his tenure as director for some 21 years and to become friends along the way. John, I welcome you to Construction Dream Team.
Thank you, Sue.
Do you have anything to add to the introduction?
Well, I think in those 21 years as director, you and I worked closely together for 20 years. So it's a great friendship, and you played such an important role in my success and career at SFO. So it's a great pleasure to be speaking with you today.
Thanks, John. You're so kind. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about meditation and leadership. I know that the path that John took in his leadership was he really got introduced to meditation, and it has become a really important component to his leadership. And so I thought today we would ask him to come and share how he used meditation as the CEO at SFO.
So I started meditation at just the right time, Sue. I started meditation practice in 2001, a few months before 9/11. And this practice of meditation, I started both as a way to deal with the stress I faced as CEO, but also as kind of a calling for something more, for a more balanced life, for something beyond the calling of my work at the airport. And the practice is most of all one of present awareness. So 9/11 hit, and we lost 40% of our traffic, 40% of our passengers. And to have that practice of meditation, of present awareness, served me so well during that very difficult time.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Well, I was there. I know it was hard. We were waiting for the locusts to come.
Yeah, I was known as the Job of airport directors because we got hit harder than any other airport in the country and had to lay off about 15% of our staff. And yet, because I was present, I wasn't caught up in what might have been or what could be, but just present for things as they are. I could be present with my staff, with my team, and face the challenges we had to face together.
So how did you integrate this meditative practice into your leadership approach?
So most of all, I brought in the basic intentions that underlie the practice of meditation. The intentions of letting go to be present right in the present moment, letting go of the past, letting go of the future. The intention of kindness, this intention of kindness for myself, kindness for others, sounds so simple, but it can be a very refined practice to bring this kindness into our lives and into the workplace, and can easily be overlooked in the current fast-paced workplace world. And then the intention of caring that often manifests compassion for our customers, for one another, for the employees who were all part of the team that we were working with. These intentions of letting go, of kindness, of caring, really bring these more and more deeply into practice at work and into the whole of my life. So these are both the intentions for meditation, but then this practice of mindfulness meditation is really one of bringing it fully into every moment of one's life.
What does the practice look like? If someone saw you practicing this, can they tell you're doing it?
So if they saw me sitting, I think they would know I was practicing. But I would do usually I would do over my years as airport director, and still today, after my breakfast every day, I do a meditation, a sitting, and I started doing a meditation at the end of each workday too, kind of bookending the day. And a lot of times, bringing the practice into the workplace, I'm sure people had no idea when I was practicing, but maybe they saw the benefits. And the practice would just be being in the body and kind of know when I'm walking, when I'm standing, when I'm sitting, being present for the emotions, the feelings that are present, and staying with the intentions of letting go, not getting caught up and needing things to be different. Intention of kindness, of caring. So kind of using the alarm bells of watching for reactivity. If the mind started to fall into being angry or upset about something, not denying what was present, but being present, and then checking the intentions to make sure the words and the actions were rooted in kindness and caring. Not always the case. I'm sure you saw over the years, remember times when I would get upset, but kind of returning to the practice and the deeper intentions that supported my effort to really create a great place to work for my employees and the larger team of people at the airport.
Can you share some examples of letting go, kindness, and caring of each of these in the workplace and in your work life?
Sure. So letting go for me, I really, especially my first 10 years, wanted to be in control of everything. And thought that I had to be the driver to keep working toward making things better and better, that I kind of needed to be this superhero to get everything done. And when I brought this intention of letting go more deeply into the workplace, it meant letting go to more deeply trust the staff. What I did to support that was creating teams of staff members to look at best practices to serve the guests, best practices for safety and security, for environmental leadership, best practices to create a great place to work. And so the team started to create a vision, plans, goals. And I actually started to see that the greatest wisdom, something you'd been saying, but I didn't fully get it until I started implementing it in this way. I started to see that the greatest wisdom comes from the collective, not from me individually as a leader. And a great leader recognizes that. It took me quite a while to realize this. I think great leaders recognize the deepest wisdom comes from the team overall. And by letting go, by trusting the staff, I created an environment of deeper trust among all of the staff members where creativity could really begin to flourish. So it was a real letting go on my part to let go of needing to be the one in control and needing to be the one who knows best. And I think I also started to let go around making my happiness dependent on the outcomes. We could have these goals and plans, but I didn't need to fix on specific outcomes. I could let go and then sometimes be surprised to find that a different outcome than what I imagined was actually a better outcome than what I had previously imagined.
That's exciting. So what about kindness?
Kindness. So for me, it was really taking more time to connect with my employees at a personal, individual level. And I know for some leaders, this comes more naturally. For some, it's like me, where they can get so caught up in all of the demands of the workplace that the human connection can kind of be pushed aside a little bit. So for me, the kindness meant that I would actually take time every day to walk around the airport and make personal connections with my 1,800 employees, custodians, window washers, craftspeople, safety workers, police, fire, finance staff, ITT staff, staff from throughout the whole airport, that I could make the personal connection, show that I wanted to listen and listen deeply to what they had to say, and that I cared about how they viewed SFO as a place to work. And I started talking about kindness in the workplace, in staff meetings, kindness for one another, kindness for our employees. And I have to say, at first, a lot of staff people the reaction was, "What? This is work. Why are you talking about kindness in the workplace?" But everybody wants kindness in their lives and wants to be heard, wants to be seen, and would like to be in a workplace where they can express that basic kindness and caring for one another. And when that kindness and caring is there, then there's a deeper listening, so that people begin to understand what each other have to do to meet their own job requirements, a willingness to begin to help others do their jobs, so that it's not just in a workplace environment where each person is meeting their own personal demands, but a workplace where everyone is helping one another, which kind of gets to that third element of caring and compassion. And when there's kindness, there's transparency in sharing information. There's a willingness to bring forward issues, challenges, problems, and everybody begins to work more seamlessly as a team, and caring for one another and caring about the mission, the vision of the organization, and creating an exceptional workplace and an organization that delivers at an exceptional level as well.
The interesting thing is that for listeners, that John absolutely lives the exceptional workplace and was able to create an atmosphere where that thrived with everyone. So, but tell me more about the kindness and caring and compassion. What about when you're kind of ticked off?
So in the meditation mindfulness practice, we're to acknowledge those emotions, feelings when they're present, acknowledge them in our own minds and hearts, and be present for what it feels like in the body, in the direct experience. And it doesn't mean that I have the intention of not speaking words that are harsh or cause harm. It doesn't mean that I'm not direct. And actually found with a practice that I was more able and willing to be direct when there were issues. And one of the ways I saw this manifest was especially that people who didn't fit within the culture of the organization, that didn't hold to the values that the team created, values of transparency, of creativity, of openly sharing information, working as a team, that those individuals were, so to speak, not on the bus and had to be moved along. So really became more clear over time that what the values were and who was working within the values. And we'd obviously work with employees to make sure they were understanding and following the values, but taking the action necessary to support the other team members who were on board, so to speak, with the values. Sometimes, though, Sue, I'd catch myself really strong reaction, and someone would really come on very aggressively. Maybe one of the tenants that I worked with And sometimes I would just have to say, I need to take a break. And I'd go for a walk, just to, really let the steam out and feel it. But also still really willing to be direct with team members when there was a lack of adherence to the key core values of the organization that supported teamwork, that supported kindness and caring.
One of the things I observed several times was that when you got to the point with someone where, maybe at one point you were angry a little bit with them, but, you never expressed that. But that when you finally realized that it's because they weren't a fit, you, in the kindest way, would gently let people go, and they accepted it.
That was the approach I tried to take, was to bring that kindness and caring into even the most difficult decisions. And I remember that I felt so grateful that I had the practice to be able to follow those values when we had to let 150 people go after 9/11, almost 10% of the workforce. That we were really very clear on the issues and problems we were facing, and we provided services to support those individuals and looking for new jobs, sought to help them transfer to other city departments where possible. And I do recognize, I remember the first few months, I didn't want to take those actions. I just wanted to keep delaying it in the hope that things would change. But I remember one of my staff people, kind of a beloved staff member, came in and said to me, "Wake up, wake up, you've got to take action. We can't pay these salaries." And it was really great advice. I had to wake up and see we did have to take that difficult action, but we could still do it in a way that was kind and caring.
But one of the things that's most interesting about that story is that you had staff who are willing to tell you the truth. Most CEOs suffer from the ideas of not knowing. People aren't willing to tell them the truth. So you create an atmosphere where people are willing to tell you the truth. That's pretty amazing in and of itself.
It took some time to get there, Sue, where people were willing to tell the truth. I remember my first 5 or 6 years as director it was pretty hard to eke out the truth, but we didn't have that level of kindness and caring, and we didn't have that deep trust within the organization. And I remember in 2000, before we were opening the international terminal, maybe 6 or 8 months before, and being pulled aside by a building inspector, and the building inspector said, "No way is this going to be on time." And no one else was willing to tell me that. So it was a real big alarm bell on something being wrong in our culture, that people weren't willing to share that information. And that was one of the, that moment of insight and seeing the lack of trust, or the clear moment for seeing that I needed to bring the values of partnering more fully into the organization. We'd been doing partnering at kind of a basic level, but not fully embracing partnering, where we were using the scorecards. We were having very frequent meetings to make sure everything was on track. And so we started bringing that partnering model more fully into both our construction projects, and then maybe 4 or 5 years later, bring the same principles of partnering, open sharing of information, clearing the air as a starting point, building trust at a human level with all of the team members. We brought that in not only to our construction projects, but also into the whole way that we were running the organization. 1,800 employees, and it spread out. Even, it was interesting, I hadn't intended to do this, but it spread out to all of the dozens of other organizations that we worked with at the airport: the FAA, the TSA, the San Francisco Police Department, Customs Border Patrol, all of the airlines. We started to create this larger culture at SFO that started to envelop all of the organizations at the airport. And really we're beginning to create this sense of a great place to work that went just beyond just the airport commission, but to this larger community of of 40,000 people working at SFO.
I saw it also extended out like into even the craft people who were, or the cities that surrounded the airport, where it was just the culture. And so it's sort of like the culture is so strong that if someone walks into it, it becomes the culture that they're working within, no matter what their business might be with the airport. I'm sure over 21 years, not everything was hunky dory all the time. What were the biggest challenges you faced, and how did you use these intentions of letting go, kindness, and caring to help you when you had big challenges?
So the letting go meant really to recognize the present circumstance as it was, to not get caught up in being angry at the circumstance or pointing fingers of blame. So after 9/11, we were in a very difficult position because United Airlines went bankrupt, filed for bankruptcy. They cut back their flights a lot. Southwest closed up operation and moved to all their operations to Oakland and San Jose. We're hit by the SARS epidemic in Asia, so it limited Asian traffic. So all of these difficulties that hit us, but it didn't serve us to say kind of, why me? We had to face this circumstance as it was. And together at that time, shortly after that, we set this very ambitious goal of saying we need to cut our costs on a per passenger level by 33%. And we need to grow our international traffic by 30%. And we need to get some new domestic carriers into the airport at a big level. And we actually had no idea how we were going to do it, but we knew these were the things we needed to do to be successful. And we had to explain to staff at all levels, to the custodians. We had 600 custodians and window washers at the airport. Had to help them understand why they needed to double up the number of restrooms they were cleaning to help us cut costs. So we had to have this very high level of open communication to all the staff to understand the direction we were going, and that we had a vision. We had an inspiring vision of where we needed to get to. And it allowed us to, as we started making progress in that area, to demonstrate that we could cut costs, we could grow revenue, even with this loss in passenger traffic, that we were able to attract Virgin America to headquarters in San Francisco, this new airline. And their decision to headquarter in San Francisco brought Southwest back into SFO and brought JetBlue in to start operation at SFO too. And we started to really turn the corner. So sometimes bring people together to let go of needing to know how we're going to get there, but to have faith and confidence that we as a team can achieve something bold and great, something exceptional, even though we don't know in this moment how we're going to get there. So that's one example at a very large scale. A more specific example I'll give is of T2, Terminal 2. So shortly after Virgin America Airlines started, we had made a commitment to remodel Terminal 2 to meet their needs. And Terminal 2 had been closed for some time because of the cut in traffic. And so at that time, we decided to really fully embrace the partnering model, bring every aspect of the partnering into that construction project. And for me, too, as a CEO, really bringing these intentions of my practice of letting go, to let go, to trust the partnering team that we were bringing together, to be there as CEO for all the meetings, but to really let go, to begin to trust the wisdom of this collective team, and to encourage through my role as a leader to demonstrate kindness and caring for one another, to support that culture of kindness and caring, even though there were still stresses and arguments that occurred, but keeping these larger, deeper intentions in place. And it wasn't easy going. I remember, especially the first year, there was a lot of conflict and challenges, and people taking their posture, their stances, in effect, keeping their hats on of, I work for this construction company or I work for this airline. But over time, the magic started to happen with this environment of kindness, caring, the trust that was developed with a partnering model, everyone together creating the visions, the goals, the means for problem resolution. Over time, I started to not be able to keep track of who worked for which organization. Everybody was just one team member, and I think that's what they felt. They were team members who look forward to coming to work. Not always a case in the construction industry, not always a case at the airport or with airlines. All of these organizations were very involved, and people started to enjoy coming to work on this project because creativity was really encouraged, and the environment supported bringing forth issues and problems. When there was a challenge or a problem or a new issue identified, there was a sense of, oh, look, we have this new problem, almost a sense of, this is fun. We can have fun with this and find a creative solution. And what I started to see was I started seeing ideas coming forth that went beyond what I thought was possible. And while I had always viewed kind of Terminal 2 as kind of my baby, the terminal project I was involved with from beginning to end, even though it was my baby, I could see that the magic of my trusting the team, letting go to trust the team, and see the great creativity that was coming forward. And so what it meant was in Terminal 2, things that were unique industry setting at the time, the living room furniture, the swivel seats and the hold rooms. We were the first airport to provide that kind of seating arrangement in Terminal 2. And we knew from our surveys that passengers felt that the restroom cleanliness quality was the number one factor in how they rated the airport overall. So we went completely overboard with very high-end finishes on the restrooms with piped-in music, and we went all out on the restaurants. We set goals of being the most successful airport in the country on sales per passenger from restaurants and shops, and we achieved that. It was a first LEED Gold terminal. Extraordinary artwork, all of these things that made it exceptional and industry leading. And even putting in a yoga room. We didn't plan on a yoga room, but because we were listening when someone before the terminal had formally opened made the suggestion, you have everything in this terminal building except a yoga room, we picked that up and said, okay, we'll put in a yoga room. So we became the first airport in the world with a yoga and meditation room.
That's awesome.
So we had fun. Everybody had fun. I also started seeing I was having more fun as a result of this, of both the approach of fully embracing partnering and bringing these values of letting go, kindness, compassion into the workplace. And some of the listeners now may feel like it's kindness, compassion in the workplace. Just that sounds like too big of a challenge, but it's what everybody wants in the whole of their lives. And if they feel like they have this in the workplace, I think they'll give something extraordinary in their work, that people will give 1,000% when they feel like they're seen, they're supported, and they work in a place where they really enjoy coming to work and take pride and being able to tell friends and family, this is where I work, this is what I'm working on. Everybody would rather work on something exceptional and not just say, I work in a job where I got my job done and I can leave it behind at the end of the day. I want to be part of something exceptional.
You'd mentioned quite a few times that you're a big believer in partnering. So for those listeners out there who are not a big believer in partnering, I know that you attended every single partnering session, not just for T2, but really every project. And a lot of people would say, I can't believe that John Martin comes to every single partnering session. So obviously you had lots of things you could have been doing. and you felt as though your biggest ROI was to attend a partnering session. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I really viewed the attendance at partnering sessions as key role of my being a leader. One of the most important insights I had over the years as airport director is that leaders don't do, leaders lead. And in being in the partnering session as a leader and listening, supporting teamwork, supporting open communication, these are key aspects of leadership. And if I get caught up in writing memos and micromanaging, then I'm doing rather than leading. So really important that the leader be there in the partnering session to set the right tone, to support that open communication and trust, to be willing to step in when there's problems, to recognize be able to see personally who's on board, and on those cases where someone isn't on board, to take the appropriate action. And by showing my own commitment to partnering, my own trust, confidence in this process, it supported others coming fully on board. And in effect, I allowed myself to be fully transparent and vulnerable to discuss my own concerns on the projects too, as they came along. It supported others being that transparent and vulnerable, and the building of the strong sense of teamwork.
That makes great sense, actually. So there were probably other big challenges you hit. I know there was a crash that was not anticipated.
So I want to add one more thing on the partnering too, Sue. In my being there, it supported and required, in effect, the contractors, other organizations such as FAA, TSA, to also have their top executives present. And so that was also very important from a CEO perspective, that I encourage that.
We just went aside to that part, is that I know we saw over and over on projects that if we didn't have that C-level present, we didn't get the same results on the projects.
It makes such a difference to have people at every level of the organization involved in partnering. And I would personally sometimes step in when I would see that some organizations, the top level staff were not present, have individual meetings with those executives to make sure to encourage or even require that level of participation to support that culture of deep trust that allows extraordinary success on projects. So you were mentioning the crash of the Asiana flight, which was certainly one of the most challenging times in my tenure as airport director. And I'll just tell a story about that. I was home weeding my front yard when I got the text message of the crash. And I immediately changed clothes and drove down to the airport and saw the many ambulances on the freeway going to San Francisco General, and could feel the great concern for what might have happened for the people who'd been injured, loss of life. And I really knew so little at that time what was going on. And I drove down expecting that I would really have to jump in at an operational level to potentially be involved in directly being hands-on and overseeing the operations response, the rescue. But what I saw coming into the Emergency Operations Center was that the team was seamlessly working together to save lives and deal with the immediate crisis of that crash. And the team was not just my operations staff, it was also the San Francisco Police and the Fire Department, officials from the Federal Aviation Administration, TSA, FBI, Customs Border Patrol, even airline representatives, United Airlines station manager. United didn't have any role in that crash whatsoever, but the station manager came in and saw staff from other parts of my operation, from information technology, from finance, from engineering, that didn't have seemingly a role right there, but they wanted to be there, ready to serve. And everybody was openly sharing information, in effect, that they'd taken off the hat of the organization they worked for to be a part of the team. So I felt such a deep gratitude and recognition of the extraordinary workplace we had created, where this level of trust and teamwork was present. Yeah, it was deeply meaningful to see that. And so I could see my role in stepping in there was not, I didn't need to be there getting involved in the details of the rescue or the operations. They knew what to do. And so my focus became, shifted to make sure the pieces were in place to get the airport reopened as quickly as possible. Because hundreds of flights were already in the air from around the world. Flights, or there was an expectation of a landing at SFO, and the airport was entirely closed. So we needed to get at least 2 runways reopened as quickly as possible, and then have a plan to get all 4 runways open over a period of days as the aircraft that had crashed was removed and the runway repairs were made. And then also that I could then focus my time in those first hours and talking to policymakers and elected officials, and then dealing with the media. So it was a very rewarding experience, and so it was letting go, to trust my staff, to trust this is the way it is. This is what we have to deal with. The kindness and caring that was so naturally coming forward. And I remember that kind of a little footnote on the kindness was in the kind of caring compassion was after the crash, we had a press conference, maybe 4 or 5 hours later. The fire chief, the Mayor Lee, and I, and we were in the airport museum, and there were probably 65 TV cameras. I think over 100 reporters. And I felt nervous at first coming out because we really didn't know. We didn't really know how many people had died, what the level of injuries was. Didn't know the cause of the accident. But I could connect in that moment with feeling that tens of millions of people around the world who were waiting to hear and naturally wishing well for the passengers, family members, and kind of connecting with this universal wish of kindness and caring that supported me then in that moment of being present and clear and being able to acknowledge we don't know. We don't have the answers to the questions.
So open and honest is better almost in every circumstance, isn't it?
Being honest and open, and then also acknowledging this is what we face. We don't need to point the finger of blame. We've got to deal with the issue at hand.
I know too that when the crash occurred and staff started hearing about it, everyone just jumped and came to help as well, as much as they could, for whatever they could do.
It was inspiring to see the way everyone responded, and then the work that was done so quickly to get the airport reopened, both those first 2 runways, but then also the more significant work that had to be repair work that had to be done on the runway where the crash occurred, and the speed with which that happened, and even the investigatory agencies that came in were impressed by the level of open communication and sharing, and the ability to get the airport fully reopened after such a major incident. And then too, we did this next step on the crash that we followed the same method in partnering on projects. We entered into a lessons learned phase. So Fortunately, commercial aviation has gotten safer and safer over the years. So it's a pretty rare occurrence now that there's a commercial aviation crash in the US. So we really wanted to break it apart so we as an organization could learn what worked, what didn't work, what we could do better, what we could do to be better prepared. And we were willing to, in that level of transparency, that attitude of vulnerability, of learning, that we were willing to share those lessons with the whole aviation industry. So we invited other airports, airlines to come and learn and see the lessons we had learned and even hear their wisdom and input on what the whole industry could do better, not only what SFO could do better, but what the whole industry could learn from this experience. So this is kind of the extraordinary thing that can happen when there's a level of trust within an organization as it begins to spread outwards to the larger community and then even to the larger community of the entire aviation community throughout the country and the world.
Very inspiring, John, as always. Do you have a book or resource that you could recommend to anyone who wants to try to learn more?
So learning more, I mean, there's several ways of learning more. For those interested in meditation, I most of all suggest classes. It's hands-on learning from a teacher is the best way to learn about meditation. And then reading to go along with that. But just picking up a book and reading about meditation is not enough. You really need to be with a teacher. And then the partnering books you've written, Sue, were really helpful to me and being a leader on partnering. I think the first book I read was Partnering Your Project for Success. Is that right?
Yeah, Partner Your Project. Yep.
Partner Your Project. I added the success.
Thank you very much.
And then, there's books, for me as a leader, the books I connected with most deeply were the Jim Collins book, especially Good to Great. It really fit with our organization that emphasizes the level of trust. And we had every member of our staff, of our management staff, read Good to Great to support that. So, and then kind of the best, I really watched in my meditation practice, part of the practice is to watch and pay attention to insights, kind of those aha moments, and really let those in deeply and then follow those. So I mentioned earlier, one of the insights I had was leaders don't do, leaders lead. And one way it manifested too is I realized the less I did, the better things ran. It was a little bit humbling to realize the less I did, the better things ran. But it was absolutely true, because the more I got into micromanagement, it would tell staff, I don't fully trust you. So they wouldn't really follow through in doing the work. This is the approach I followed in my first 5 years. And then gradually really fully trusting the staff to deal with issues and problems as they came up, to develop creative ideas. And a great example of this is with the Uber and Lyft. We were San Francisco, one of the first cities in the country where Uber and Lyft really took off. And we started being flooded with these operators, and they didn't have any right to operate at the airport. They didn't have any agreement. We weren't getting any revenue, and we knew it was a problem. We talked about it. But I did have the intention of letting go with the staff to come up with ideas and creative solutions. And kind of lo and behold, I wasn't very involved in this at all. Staff came up with an idea to develop an app and track every Uber and Lyft vehicle, and then to charge them a per trip fee. And we developed, my IT staff, information technology staff, working with the operations staff, so 2 different divisions. Usually you wouldn't think of these 2 different divisions working creatively together in most organizations, but they creatively together came up with this approach using an app that the staff developed. It's now made available to other airports around the country through a licensing agreement. and that this model is generating, I believe, over $35 million a year in revenue to the airport now. So really found a creative solution that even Uber and Lyft saw was a wise way of dealing, establishing a business relationship between the airport and the company. So kind of going back, these insights of leaders lead by setting the tone, by bringing people together, by ensuring clear communication, by supporting everyone being on the same level of understanding on core values, and by holding people to those core values. Insights I've had on trusting my instincts. The biggest mistakes I made as airport director is when I acted on something where it was not consistent with my own instinct on what should be done. Another key insight was that workplace environment really matters. Creating a great place to work really matters. So doing things like supporting a healthy workplace environment, taking time to support open communication, which partly I did by attending the partnering sessions. Showing that the leadership of the airport really cared about the employees. So my time walking around the airport connecting, we recognized employees for every 5 years of service. The airport would give employees pins for each 5-year increment, and we'd present this annually in a state of the airport address. So in front of hundreds of other employees were recognized for their years of service and loyalty to the airport. So that seeing and listening that really mattered.
Well, it sounds like you took the intentions, I guess, which just makes total sense, and it became who you are, and who you became who the airport became, and rippled out beyond that, which is pretty significant for anybody who's a leader.
That's one of the key understandings from my practice is that actions matter. Every action in our lives matter. And so actions that are rooted in caring and kindness and wisdom that support creativity, that support creating an exceptional service delivery, creating an exceptional airport, in my case, an exceptional airport for our guests, for our passengers, being an exceptional leader on environmental leadership. Actions matter. And beneath every action, there's an intention. There's always an intention before an action. So staying in touch with our intentions as leaders, kind of checking and rechecking what's their present intention. Is it skillful? Is it rooted in kindness and caring, supporting creativity, supporting trust in the organization? It's just a framework of understanding. And this is the way partnering supported me so deeply as a leader. Is the partnering provided a model for understanding, a model for behavior, a model for bringing people together on construction projects, and then also supported me as a leader in developing a model that I could use in leading the larger organization and larger airport community.
That's awesome. So how can people contact you, John?
I'm on LinkedIn, so it's a great way to connect with me through LinkedIn, John L. Martin. And that's the best way.
And what parting advice might you give to the leaders that are listening today, and the people, and not leaders are through all the organization, not just at the top, for what they might do to help use these intentions? And then we'll say goodbye.
I think be exceptional. It's possible to be exceptional. And the most important thing in leading, creating an exceptional organization is building trust within the organization, building trust with all the team members, and allowing and supporting them and being creative and creating an environment of transparency that encourages and celebrates creativity and successes. it's possible to be exceptional, and everyone wants to work for an organization that is exceptional.
Thank you so much, John, for coming and sharing with the Construction Dream Team today. Your ideas are always exceptional, and so are you. I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sue. Great to be spending this time with you. Okay, take care.
Just remember, Construction Nation, dream teams don't just happen. They are built one step at a time. Why not send out this episode to your entire team so they can help you? The more people you have helping, the faster you can build your construction dream team. You can't have your dream until you build your team. Please head on over to constructiondreamteam.com to sign up for our newsletter. And don't forget to subscribe in iTunes or Stitcher. Construction Dream Team drops every Monday morning at 4 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So please join me next week when I will interview another industry leader or expert so you can learn how to create your construction dream team. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will catch you next time.